Okay, so welcome to the WIC special webinar for August 25th today. You all are probably very curious because you're watching this. You're probably very curious about your Acera benefits that you're earning, and you might have some questions. Questions like, what do I need to know about my pension? Or do I need to do anything? And if so, what do I need to do? So I have organized the answers to your questions into two checklists. So what I'm showing you here is the checklist of topics we're going to cover in the first half of the presentation, because I've kind of squeezed two presentations that I normally do, the new employee and mid-career webinar, and then the pre-retirement webinar. I've kind of squeezed them into one. So we'll do the new employee mid-career stuff first. All of you who are getting ready to retire, you probably are going to want to, this is all pertinent stuff that you're going to want to know. And then in the second half, it'll be stuff just for the people who are getting ready to retire. So we'll talk about understanding, and I do see a raised hand. Go ahead and type your question in the Q&A feature if you could, and then we can read that question. Okay, so I'm gonna help you understand some retirement basics. And as part of that, we are going to talk a little bit about pension math, and it's super basic. We're not going to go into a ton of detail. I mean, there's not going to be a ton of math on that, so don't worry about that. I will show you our retirement formula, and I'll talk about purchasing service credit. And what that is going to do for the new employees and mid-career employees is going to help you understand more about how Acera works, and it's going to help you plan for the future, because you will understand what it means for you to be earning a benefit with Acera. And there's a question, what does getting to retire mean? 1 year, 5 years? You know, it's kind of a loose concept. What we often say is that if you're within 3 years of retirement, you should watch the pre-retirement seminar that we do, which is going to be the information in the second half of the presentation. But if you're closer than that and you haven't gone through it yet, that's totally fine. But that's usually what we say. And there's a question, does this apply to TAP employees? It doesn't currently apply to you because you're not yet an Acera member if you're in TAP. But if you do at some point achieve a full-time retirement eligible position, then all of this stuff will become pertinent, and then you can buy your TAP time for Acera service credit. So it's up to you whether you want to hang around and listen, or you want to wait until once you achieve that full-time retirement eligible position, whether you want to stay and whether you want to watch it at that time. Okay, so I will also talk about getting a pension estimate, and I'll show you how to do that. We'll talk about understanding your retirement eligibility when you actually become eligible to retire. I'll talk about helping you understand some additional benefits that we offer, like healthcare benefits. We'll talk about designating your beneficiary or beneficiaries for death benefits, and I'll help you understand some career planning options and what I mean by that is for if you should ever leave your employment, what are your options regarding your Acera membership? Okay, and then there is a question up there, are there penalties for early retirement? Acera doesn't really work that way, and I think you'll see in just a minute when I explain the retirement formula what I mean by that. Because you could retire, some people retire with as little as 5 years of service credit and as young as 52, sometimes 50. And there's no penalties for that per se. You would end up with less of a retirement, but you'll see what I mean when I tell you about how we calculate your retirement in just a minute. Okay, so, and then the next question I'm going to save for when I talk about purchase credit. Okay, what you're seeing here is the pre-retirement checklist. And this is what I'm going to talk about in the second half of the presentation. I will help you learn what happens to your unused sick leave. I will help you understand how vacation affects the salary component of the retirement formula. We'll talk about choosing your retirement date. I'll talk about the retirement application process and the 5 retirement allowance options, and we'll talk about healthcare benefits and some other life events. And for anyone who wants to stick around for that, who's not yet getting ready to retire, you can feel free to do that as well. Okay, let's jump right in. Let me tell you about understanding some retirement basics. So we'll start at the beginning of the story. So who is ACERA? Well, in one sense, ACERA is the Alameda County Employees Retirement Association. It's this acronym. But ACERA is made up of a lot of people. There's about 90 of us that work at ACERA, and what we do is we provide retirement, disability, and death benefits to all of our members. That is all of you. You are members of ACERA because of who you work for and the position that you work in. So you work currently, or at some point you worked in the past full-time in a retirement eligible position. You may no longer work full-time, but at some point you worked full-time in a retirement eligible position, even if it was just for a short period of time. And that automatically granted you ACERA membership. And ACERA members usually all work for one of our 6 participating employers. Okay. And you all work for your particular employer, your particular department that participates in ACERA. So who you work for and the retirement eligible position that you work for automatically grant you ACERA membership. And as an ACERA member, you pay into ACERA's fund with every paycheck. And this is called your employee contributions. So if you look at your pay stub and you look in the before tax deductions column, you will see a line that says retirement, and it will say your tier, and I'll tell you what your tier means in just a few minutes. It will often say your tier, and you'll see some money coming out of your check. That money is going into ACERA's fund, and your employer also makes a contribution on your behalf whenever you contribute. And so we take your money that you all are contributing, and we don't want it to just sit around and collect dust, so we invest it all over the world and earn a lot of interest on that money. And these 3 sources of income, your contributions, your employer contributions, and the money we earn by investing your money, give us this big pool of money that we call ACERA's fund. So then what do we do with that money? Why are we collecting all this money? Well, you are, while you work, earning credit toward retirement in your retirement eligible position. As you work, you earn credit toward retirement, and you earn credit in 3 categories, which I'll tell you about in just a few minutes. So you're earning credit while you work, and at some point in the future, you're going to retire, which means you stop earning credit toward retirement and you start collecting the retirement that you've been earning your entire career. And this comes in the form of a check that you will receive. It's really a direct deposit, but you'll get that every month for the rest of your life. You cannot outlive your ACERA retirement. This is known as your ACERA retirement allowance, also known as your pension or your pension benefit or your retirement benefit. These are all synonymous terms for the same idea, that you're going to get paid from ACERA every month for the rest of your life once you retire. So it's a really amazing thing. It's a secure retirement that you can count on every month for the rest of your life. Let me show you some milestones regarding your pension that you will likely see throughout your career. So first of all, we have your date of hire. This is your first day in that retirement eligible position. Okay. And then what happens is 2 weeks goes by, and the first day of your second pay period, that is your date of entry into ACERA. Now, let me just clarify something. Is WIC a department of Alameda County?
WIC is a part of Public Health Department.
The Public Health Department, which is a department of Alameda County, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So yeah, you all have a couple of our employers don't have the 2-week lag, but you have your date of hire, and then there's a 2-week lag, and the first day of your second pay period, that is your date of entry into ACERA. And this is the day when you start earning credit toward retirement. Okay, then what happens is 5 years goes by if you work full-time, or the equivalent of 5 full-time years goes by. Once you earn 5 years of service credit with ACERA, you're considered vested in ACERA. And vesting just means guaranteed. It's kind of a loose concept, but what happens at 5 years is you then have access to many of the guaranteed benefits. So that's what vesting means. Okay, then at some point after that, there's going to be a date that you become eligible to retire. And it's going to be based on some combination of your age and your years of service credit, basically how long you've worked in your retirement eligible position, how much service credit you've earned. So there's going to be a combination that gets you to retirement eligibility. And it's going to be a little bit different for everyone. There's a few different combinations that will get you there, and I'll talk about what those are during the presentation. But this is the first day that you could physically retire if you want to, your first day of retirement eligibility. But many people don't do that because they want to stay in their job and keep earning more and more retirement. So the more credit toward retirement you earn, the larger your retirement allowance is going to be once you retire. And you'll see what I mean by that in just a few minutes. Okay, so there's some date, usually after your retirement eligibility date, where you leave your job. And many people, the majority of people, we find go straight from active work into retirement, which is why these two dates are right next to each other. But your termination date is your last day of work with ACERA. And then your retirement date is a date that you choose. This is your first day of retirement. And this is when you have stopped earning retirement on your termination date, and you start collecting your retirement on your retirement date. Okay. Then you're going to collect your retirement allowance every month for the rest of your life until your death. And that's when your retirement payments stop. Now, at the time of retirement, you have the opportunity on your retirement application, in many cases, to leave a continuance benefit to a beneficiary after your death. And a continuance just means a continuing payment. So if you have done that, your beneficiary could get a continuing monthly payment until their death. And that's why there's that final milestone on there. And then that final milestone concludes the payment of benefits to you and your family members or your estate from ACERA. So those are the pension milestones that you will see with your membership with ACERA. One more thing I want to mention is, and not everybody goes straight into retirement. So you may have a gap between your termination date and your retirement date, and that's totally fine. That's called becoming a deferred member, where you stop working and you defer your retirement to a later date. We'll talk about that during the presentation as well, if that's something that you're considering doing. A couple more quick points about vesting. Like I said, it comes with 5 years of service credit. That includes reciprocal service credit. And reciprocity is where you link different retirement systems in California together because you maybe used to work somewhere else for a different public agency in California. You can link the systems together and you can get some synergy out of that linkage. One of the synergistic effects is if you have service credit somewhere else that you've already earned, and you have service credit with ACERA, like let's say that you worked for 2 years over in Contra Costa County, you came over to ACERA, worked 3 years here, that gives you 5 years of service credit, and that gets you over the vesting requirement. We'll talk more about reciprocity a little bit later, but that is one of the, I just wanted to mention that regarding vesting. And the guarantee comes from state law. And the guaranteed benefits are the monthly retirement benefit for life, also known as the retirement allowance, pension benefit, so on and so forth. That's that monthly payment you'll receive every month for the rest of your life. A cost of living increase to that monthly retirement allowance. This is called a COLA. That's a percentage increase that you get annually. And then there's a $1,000 lump sum death benefit. Now, there are other death benefits that you can choose from at the time of retirement, but this one I like to mention on this list because it's a basic vested benefit. Let me tell you about your tier. You all are, let me see here. You are all going to be looking at this top timeline here because there, as far as I know, there's no safety members who work for WIC or public health. So you all are general members. Safety members are probation officers and sheriff's deputies, basically. So you all are general members. And the way your tier works is that your date of entry into ACERA determines your tier. If you entered ACERA before the cutoff date for the particular tier, then that puts you in the earlier tier. So for example, if you entered ACERA before July 1st, 1983, so we're talking about June 30th, 1983 and before, that would have put you in tier 1. Now, that was a while ago. I'm not sure if there's any tier 1 members in the webinar, but a lot of you may be in tier 2 or tier 4. So tier 2 members entered Acera July 1st, 1983, all the way up to December 31st, 2012. That puts you in tier 2. And if you entered Acera January 1st, 2013 and beyond, you're in tier 4. Now, if you wanted to definitively see which tier you're in, maybe you don't remember your date of entry, or maybe it's right on one of these lines, you can log into our website by going to acera.org, acera.org, and you press the login button, and you can get into your account in there, and it will definitively tell you which tier you're in. And it will also tell you what your Acera entry date is in there. So that's how your tier works and is determined. Let me help you understand some pension math. And if you're new, or maybe even if you're in your mid-career, you might be asking, why do I have to learn this? Like, why are you telling me about this now? I don't need to know this until later. And the reason I'm telling you about it now is that if you understand how we calculate your pension, like what the 3 areas, these 3 ways that you're earning credit toward retirement are, and how to maximize those, it will help you maximize your retirement by the time you get there. And so it's just good to know how this stuff works. So what you're seeing is Acera's retirement formula. When you go to retire, we will calculate this formula for you based on these 3 factors from your career. And the age factor percentage is a percentage of your highest salary that you're going to get for each year of service. The years of service credit is measured in years. That's basically how long you work. And the highest average monthly salary is an average salary based on your period of highest pay. Now, I'm going to break down each one of these in a lot more detail, tell you exactly how they work. But for right now, let me just stick with the full equation here, and I think you'll get a sense of how to maximize your retirement allowance. Okay, you can see that this is a multiplication, and so the higher any of these numbers are, the higher the retirement allowance is going to be. And you have a higher and higher age factor percentage simply by retiring at an older age. You earn more service credit by working longer, and you earn a higher average salary by through cost of living increases, raises, and perhaps promotions. Now, when we go to calculate your retirement, what you're going to get in retirement is you are going to get this sentence in English is basically saying is a description of what's happening in this equation. You're going to get a percentage of your highest salary for each year of service that you work in retirement. Okay, let me give you an example. Let me put some numbers in here. Let's say that the percentage of your highest salary that you're going to get for each year of service is 2%. And let's also say that you work for 20 years. You earn 20 years of service credit. So you are going to get, as your retirement allowance, 2% of your highest salary for each one of those 20 years. Now, if we say 2% for each of 20 years, we can just multiply those together to get 40%. 2% times 20 is 40%. So that means your retirement allowance is going to be 40% of your highest average monthly salary. You know, essentially 40% of what you were making while you were employed in this example. Now, let me put another number in here. Let's continue with the example. Let's say your highest average monthly salary is calculated to be $5,000 per month on average. So your retirement allowance is going to be 40% of that. 40% of 5,000 is $2,000. So we just multiply these two together. That gives us the $2,000. That becomes your retirement allowance that you'll receive every month for the rest of your life. Excuse me. Plus cost of living increases. So the bottom line here is that the higher any of these 3 numbers are, the higher the age factor percentage based on higher and higher ages. The more years of service credit that you earn, the higher your salary equals a higher retirement allowance. So that's how you can maximize your retirement allowance, is by maximizing each of these 3 factors. Now, let me give you some more details about each one of these and how we calculate them. And I'll do the age factor percentage first. What percentage of your highest salary will you get for each year of service? Because it's not necessarily going to be 2%. It's going to depend on your age at retirement. What you're seeing here is a sample age factor percentage chart. Okay, so you're just going to look at the column for your tier. So if you're in tier 1, or you look here, tier 2, or tier 4. Livermore Area Recreation and Parks District is the only employer that has tier 3. And as we said, there's no safety members here. Okay. So when you go to retire, let's say you're a general tier 2 member and you go to retire and you retire at age 60. Okay, Acera needs to do this calculation for you. We need to fill in this age factor part of the formula with a percentage. So we're going to come out to this chart and we're going to go general tier 2, age 60, find where they intersect, 1.92%. That is the percentage that we're going to use in the formula for you. That is the percentage of your highest salary that you're going to get for each year of service. Now, you'll notice that the age factor percentages get larger the older you are when you retire, up to a maximum for each one of the tiers, which is denoted by the blue box. And if you retire at that maximum age or older than that maximum age, you get the maximum age factor percentage for your tier. So if you're a general tier 2 member and you retire at 65, you get 2.43%. If you retire at 66 or 67 or 68, it's 2.43%. And that's what we would put in the formula for you. Now, you'll probably also notice that there's a bunch of gaps in here. I skipped a bunch of ages. And that is because there's actually so many incremental increases in the full chart that they don't all fit on the slide, because these percentages increase with every quarter year you get older based on your birth date. So for example, if your birth date is January 15th, 1 quarter after your birth date is April 15th, 2 quarters after your birth date is July 15th, 3 quarters is October 15th, and then back to your birthday of January 15th in this example. So every time you pass one of those dates, you would go up 1 notch in the age factor chart. And if this were the full chart, it would say like 60, 60 and a quarter, 60 and a half, 60 and 3/4, 61, and so on and so forth. So every time you age a quarter year, you achieve a slightly higher age factor percentage. There is an incremental increase. And if you want to ever see the full chart, it's out on our website at acera.org/age. And you can just search, you can just go to acera.org and search in the search blank for that as well. So that's how the age factor percentages work. Now, if you don't want to remember all of those details, totally fine. I get it. You can just remember the bottom line, that the older retirement age, the older you are when you retire, equals a higher age factor percentage, a higher percentage of your highest salary that you're going to get for each year of service, up to the maximum for whatever tier you're in. Okay, so that's how the age factor percentage is calculated. Let me tell you how the service credit is calculated. You start earning service credit when you enter Acera. So on your date of entry into Acera, and you're going to earn service credit all the way up until you stop working for your employer. And this is calculated down to 15 minutes. So it's calculated down in the fraction of a day. If you log into our website and you look at your account and you see your service credit number, it'll say like, 7.825627. And all of those decimal places are calculating your service credit down in the fraction of a day. And you will get all those decimal places in the formula for you. That's why I say that you start earning service credit on your date of entry and you earn it all the way up until 5 p.m. if you stop work at 5 p.m. on your last day with your employer. You earn service credit during your regular work hours. And you also earn service credit during your different types of leave, your earned leave. So you earn vacation leave, sick leave, management leave, comp time, floating holidays, and floating holidays. You earn service credit during those times. Those do not count against you for the purposes of calculating your pension. Now, there are some types of time where you do not earn service credit. If you ever go out on leave without pay, you're not earning service credit during that time. If you purchase additional vacation, when you mark that on your timesheet, you're not earning service credit during the purchased vacation. But I wouldn't sweat that, because a purchased vacation here and there is not over the span of your career, especially if you have a long career, it's not going to have that big of an effect on your retirement allowance whenever I've calculated that out. Okay, you also do not earn service credit for sold vacation. So your employer, if they let you sell vacation, um, and maybe you all can are you all allowed to sell vacation?
Yes,
Okay, great.
excluding top employees. That I'm not sure if they're allowed to.
Okay, great. So yeah, when you sell vacation, you don't earn service credit for that. But you may earn salary credit for it in the retirement formula, which I will talk about in the second half of the presentation when I do the pre-retirement stuff. Um, but you don't earn service credit for that. You do get cash, which is nice. Also, you don't earn service credit for overtime, on-call time, or standby time. Okay, now there are some types of time that are eligible for you to purchase as service credit. And the reason you might want to do this is to increase the amount of service credit that we put in the formula for you, which increases your retirement allowance because it's one of the 3 multipliers in the retirement formula. These categories of time that you can purchase as service credit, the idea kind of here is that if the situation was slightly different, you maybe could have earned service credit, but it being what it was, the law doesn't allow for you to get service credit, but the law does allow for you to purchase that time later. So some examples are, the first category is called ineligible non-covered service time. And this is when if you started out working part-time and you weren't working for a temporary agency and you weren't working under contract, you're just plain old part-time for your employer. Once you get that full-time retirement eligible position, that becomes purchasable, that part-time work. Also, tap time. All of the tap time is purchasable once you achieve a SARA membership. And then there's some other labels for similar types of time that you do for your employer before you achieve that retirement eligible position, like seasonal, intermittent, services needed, project per diem. All of those types are purchasable. You can also buy the 2-week lag time between your hire date and your entry date. You can purchase unpaid medical leave and state disability insurance leave. So this is like you're out on medical leave. Maybe you run out of sick leave but then you're just still out on medical leave and it becomes unpaid medical leave. You can purchase that unpaid medical leave upon returning to work, up to 1 year per instance. And when I say returning to work, what I mean is that you get paid by your employer. You get a paycheck from your employer. And so if you were out a year, you got a paycheck from your employer, you were out another year and you came back to work, got another paycheck from your employer, both of those 1 year periods would be purchasable. The same goes for state disability insurance leave. Also, people will ask about workers' comp leave. It's similar to state disability insurance leave. Usually the way that works is you're paid partially from the workers' comp system from the state and partially from your employer. And the paycheck you were getting from your employer, you were getting kind of partial service credit for that. So then when you return from that type of leave, from the workers' comp leave, you can then purchase that workers' comp time, which is like partial service credit time for what you didn't earn during that time. If you go out on military leave during your membership, you can purchase that when you return from that leave. Redeposits of prior memberships. This is where you used to work for one of our 6 employers in the past. So you were an SARA member, you stopped working, you terminated your employment, and when you did that, you took a refund of your employee contribution account. And then you went and did something else. Now you're back here, you're working here again, and you think back and you wonder, maybe I should not have withdrawn that money. I think I might want my service credit back from that original work that I did. Well, you can redeposit the money that you took out, and that is called a redeposit of a prior membership. And then you would get your service credit back. There's also redeposit of community property. So here's what this is. If you, California is a community property state. So if you get divorced or you dissolve your state registered domestic partnership, any part of your SARA retirement that you earned while you were married or in that state registered domestic partnership is community property that is up for division when you do your agreement on your divorce to divide the assets. So sometimes what will happen is ex-spouses will make an agreement where the ex non-member, the ex-spouse, will get part of the member's account. They'll take part of your employee contributions with them and a corresponding part of your service credit. And they'll have a separate account. Now, if they take a refund because they're looking for money, they take a refund for cash for that. We'll send you a letter in the mail telling you that they did that and give you the opportunity to redeposit an equivalent amount of money to get your service credit back, that equivalent amount of service credit that they took with them. That's a redeposit of community property. This final category, other California prior public service, this is where you worked for another California public agency and you're not eligible for their pension, so you can buy that time as a SARA service credit. Let's say that you worked for East Bay Mud for a year. You could buy that year as a SARA service credit. Now I'm going to show you a list of time not eligible for purchase. And the last bullet point is if you have the other prior public service time where you still have contributions on deposit with that agency. So just going back to the slide, if you're trying to buy this time, you would need to take a refund of your contributions from their pension fund before we will allow you to buy that time as a SARA service credit. Now, be careful with that, because if you actually worked there for a considerable amount of time, maybe over 5 years or whatever their vesting requirement is, you might be eligible for a pension from them eventually. And so in most cases, you probably want to just leave that over there and collect their pension whenever you become eligible for it. But if you didn't work there for very long, maybe that's why you're not eligible. And then you can just take the refund and use that money to buy it as a SARA service credit time. Okay, so the 3 other times that people ask about that are not eligible for purchase, that vacation purchase time, you purchase the vacation, you go out on the purchase vacation, you don't earn service credit, you also can't purchase the service credit back. It's just gone. But like I said, I wouldn't sweat that. Okay, so also non-medical leave without pay. If you're on leave without pay and it's not medically related, then that's not purchasable. One more thing I want to say about the medical leave is the unpaid medical leave that is purchasable is it's only for your conditions, your medical conditions only, not if you're caring for a family member. And then finally, like I was mentioning, contract or temporary agency time is not purchasable. So people ask, well, how much is it going to cost to make the service credit purchase? Well, what it's going to cost is whatever your employee contributions had been had you worked to the time that you're trying to purchase. So for example, you go out on 3 months of unpaid medical leave. Had you been working your job, you would have been getting a paycheck, and part of your paycheck would have been coming out of your paycheck and going into a SARA's fund. However much that would have been during that 3 months, that's what it's going to cost you to make that service credit purchase. Plus the interest that money would have earned between then and now. So we have 2 interest periods per year, the first 6 months and the last 6 months of the year. So when you pass those interest period earning dates and don't make the purchase, then we're going to charge you the interest that money would have made. So if you get back from the unpaid medical leave and you make the purchase immediately, you're not going to owe any interest. But if you wait, let's say 2 years, that's 4 interest periods. And so we're going to charge you the interest that money would have made had you worked the time and contributed to a SARA's fund, and we would have had the money to invest. So the longer you wait to purchase service credit, the more expensive it gets because the interest continues to accrue. How do you request service credit purchase? You simply log into your account on our website, and there is a purchase redeposit request form in there. You fill it out. We'll do calculations. We'll send you a letter with the cost of the purchase. And at that point, you can decide if you want to make the service credit purchase and even how much of the purchase you want to make if you don't want to make it all. And going back to the list, all of these types of time, except for the redeposits, you could purchase a portion of the time if you choose. The redeposits are all or none. And the other California prior public service, that's pretty expensive. That usually costs triple what the other ones cost, because when you make these purchases of the top bullet points, your employer will put in their portion. That's not going to happen if you're buying other prior public service because the employer was somebody else. So you're going to have to pay the employee and employer portion, and it's usually triple what the other ones are. So it can be pretty pricey. But like I said, you're going to get a letter in the mail, and when you see the cost, you can decide if you want to make the service credit purchase. And then you have these payment options. You can write us a lump sum check, roll over money from a pre-tax retirement account if you have one. Do payroll deductions? We'll split it up for you over time and take it directly out of your paycheck, or any combination of the 3. So that's the age factor percentage. That's the service credit. So that's the first two factors in the retirement formula. The third is the salary, highest average monthly salary. So how do we calculate that? When you go to retire, we will open up our pension software in order to do this calculation, and it's going to find your period of consecutive highest pay in your entire career because we have all your payroll records in the software, so we can do this calculation. And that period of highest consecutive pay is known as, in our pension lingo, your final compensation period. So if you're in tiers 1, there's nobody in tier 3 here. So if you're in tier 1, your final compensation period is your highest 26 biweekly or 12 monthly pay periods. If you're in tiers 2 or 4, your final compensation period is your highest consecutive 78 biweekly or monthly pay periods. And I think you all are probably paid biweekly if you're county employees. So essentially, if you're in tier 1, it's your highest year of consecutive pay. If you're in tiers 2 or 4, it's your highest 3 years of consecutive pay. And in order to get a highest average monthly salary, we simply do a simple average. We take your total pay over that highest year or 3 years, divide it by the number of months in that period to get an average. And this is the number that we would then plug into the retirement formula. The types of pay, and this is all gross pay before any deductions have been taken out. The types of pay that will be included are, of course, your base pay. And then some of you may have some footnotes or other pay codes. The other pay codes are sometimes called footnotes. Some of these may count toward this highest average salary. Some of them may not. What you need to do, because I don't have them memorized, there's like 1,000 of them. If you want to know is if it counts or not, is you go to acera.org/paycodes and open the PDF for the county, and you'll find your pay code in there, and it'll say yes or no, whether it counts or not for this. The one pay code I do know is overtime. Overtime never counts. Okay, now there's 2 more potential types of pay. If you're in tier 1 or tier 2 and you sell vacation during that final compensation period, or you simply have vacation left over that you haven't taken when you stop working, your employer will cash you out for that. So you get paid for it at that point. If that happens during your final compensation period, either one of those, some of that could be considered compensation for calculating your highest average salary. Now, I'm not going to take a deep dive into that right now. I'm going to do that in the second half of the presentation, because if you're a new employee or you're in your mid-career, you don't really need to you don't need to understand it. If you're curious about it, feel free to stick around for that, but you don't need to really dig into that at this point in your career. There are some limits to your benefit payments. The main limit that people bump up against, the one that people bump up against that have worked here a long time, is you can't get as your retirement allowance more than 100% of whatever we calculate your highest average monthly salary to be. Very few people reach 100% income replacement like that, where they're essentially getting in retirement what they were making while they were working. But there are some tier 4 people that have high salaries. There's an extra limitation on tier 4 members. So, and this was written into the state law that created tier 4 in 2012. If you're in tier 4, we have to cap the annual amount of salary that we're going to use to calculate your benefits at these numbers. So for general members, it's $146,042 for 2023. So if you were to retire this year, for example, and we went out to do your highest average monthly salary calculation, and you had a high salary that was over this amount, and you're in tier 4, we could not use any more than this amount of salary to calculate your retirement. So that's the bad news. The good news is that if you do have one of these high salaries, when you reach that earnings amount in the year, we stop collecting retirement contributions from you for the rest of the year. And that gives you more money in your paycheck. And you optionally can use that more money to save more in your 457B plan or in your personal savings and investments. Oh, okay. And here's the whole thing put together. So this tier 4 member retires at age 65 after earning 25 years of service credit. So based on them being in tier 4, when we go to the age factor chart and we look at age 65, they will get 2.30% of their highest salary for each one of these 25 years of service. Okay. They worked for 25 years. We plug that in here. Their highest salary in this example was $6,000 per month. We multiply them all together, and that gives us their monthly retirement allowance for the rest of their life. Now, one thing that you can do is you could take the age factor percentage and multiply it by the years of service credit, because they're getting 2.30% of their highest salary for each one of the 25 years. So that means they are achieving 57.5% what we call salary replacement, because they are replacing their working salary with their pension benefit, and so they're replacing 57.5% of their working salary with their pension benefit. Financial planners will tell you that in order to maintain your standard of living in retirement, you will need to replace 70 to 80% of your salary. Getting up to 57.5% with your Acera pension alone would be really good, because Social Security is going to cover a bunch more of that. And then you may have some personal savings that you can throw in there as well, and to get you up to the 70 or 80%. Okay, so let me tell you how to actually get a pension estimate. I kind of showed it to you in general terms how it works, but how can you get a specific pension estimate for your specific career and retirement situation? Well, you go out to our website, acera.org, you click login. Once you get in there, you'll see this account summary screen. You will click estimate a benefit. And I'm skipping the login screen just to be expedient. So you'll click estimate a benefit, and this is our benefit estimator tool. You're going to think of a plausible retirement scenario for you. Like maybe you're going to retire in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. You just want to see what happened. You can just pick a certain set of dates that is plausible for you to retire, especially if it's far off. You don't know exactly what day you're going to retire, but you could just add like 10 years to today if you think you might retire in 10 years. If you just want to see what happens, you just want to get an estimate for that. And so I'm going to zoom in here so you can see it better. You are going to put in 2 dates. The separation date is your last day on payroll. Your projected retirement date is your first day of retirement. If you're planning to go straight from active work to retirement, these would be 2 consecutive dates. But if not, then there might be a gap between these dates, and you can just do it based on your own plausible retirement scenario. You hit calculate. It will project an amount of service credit that you will have earned in this retirement scenario, and it will do a salary projection for you as well. And it's going to use those to calculate a benefit estimate. You can put in beneficiary information here if you want, and you click get estimate, and what you end up with is this PDF, which is our Acera's retirement benefit estimate. So you can save this. You can make as many of these as you want. You can see what happens if I retire in 10 years, 10.5 years, 11 years, 11.25 years. So just feel free to play around with it. I'll just zoom in here and show you some of the details of this briefly. It's giving you in this column right here, member monthly benefit. This is your estimated pension benefit from Acera that you would receive every month for the rest of your life in this retirement scenario. And it's showing you a number for different retirement options. If you are a new employee or you're in your mid-career, I would just look at this number right here, the unmodified option, and just kind of go by that for now. Because the time that you select your retirement option is at the time of retirement, and your situation, your life situation is probably going to look a lot different by the time you get there. So if you're curious about the different retirement options, you can explore what those are out on our website, or you can stick around for the second half of the presentation, and I will go into detail about them. But just for, projections far off in the future, you can just kind of stick with this unmodified option, because this pays the most of any of the options, and this is what the vast majority of people pick. Okay, let me help you understand retirement eligibility. So we're looking at this pension milestone right here, retirement eligibility. And like I said, it's some combination of years of service and age. If you're in tier 1 or 2, you're going to be looking at this slide, and I'll do tier 4 in just a minute. So if you're in tier 1 or 2, you have 3 options for achieving retirement eligibility. Option number 1 is that you are at least age 50, and you have at least 5 years of service credit, and you have at least 10 years of membership. And that gives you the minimum retirement eligibility. And when I say 10 years of membership, I mean at least 10 years has gone by since when you entered ACERA, since your date of entry. And so that's kind of the minimum for retirement eligibility under option 1. Option number 2 is that as a general member, you have 30 years of service credit and you can retire at any age, even if it's younger than age 50. Now, that would have meant that you started working at age 18 or 19 and you worked straight through for 30 years. Maybe you did that. You could actually retire younger than age 50. Otherwise, once you hit age 50, then the service credit requirement is only 5 years. Okay, or option number 3, you could retire at age 70 with any amount of service credit. So if you have 4 years or 3 years, you could retire at age 70 and draw a pension benefit from ACERA. And it's not going to be huge because it's just based on a few years of service credit, but it might pay a bunch of your bills in retirement, which might be nice at age 70. And I'm just realizing that I went right by the service credit purchase topic, and I failed to answer the question that's up on the board. The question was, is there amount of time that we can purchase service credit? And if what you mean by that, is there a deadline for you to purchase service credit? Yes. The only deadline is you need to finish purchasing the service credit that you want to purchase by the time you retire. So if your retirement is a ways off, you probably have a lot of time to do that. But like I said, the longer you wait, the more expensive it gets. Okay, so those are your retirement eligibility options for tiers 1 and 2. Now for tier 4, you have 2 combinations that will get you to retirement eligibility. You have to be at least age 52, and you have to have at least 5 years of service credit. So when they wrote this law, they increased the minimum age by 2 years for general members, but they got rid of that 10 years of membership thing. So you only have to have 5 years of service credit and be age 52, and then you can retire. And this kind of goes back to that original question that was asked, is there a penalty for retiring early? And it's not really a penalty per se, because you can retire early. And when you're thinking about retiring early, many people would think like retiring in your 50s is retiring early, because a lot of people end up retiring in their mid 60s. So it's fine by us. I mean, once you meet the eligibility requirements, you can go ahead and retire. Now, you may not have achieved the amount of retirement allowance that will give you a comfortable retirement or allow you to maintain your standard of living in retirement. And in that sense, there's kind of, I wouldn't really think of it as a penalty, but really the younger you retire, the less service credit you have, the less salary that you have earned equals a lower retirement benefit. So it's not, there's no penalty, but it's just kind of a progressive increase in your retirement benefit. The older you get, the longer you work, and the higher the salary that you earn. Okay, there's a question. Do you still accumulate service credit if you work less than full time, like working 80%? Absolutely. As long as you have already achieved ACERA membership by working at least, like I think the minimum is working 1 pay period full time in the retirement eligible position. You can go down to less than full time, like 80% in your example, and that's totally fine. And you just will earn service credit at a lower rate, like a slower rate. So you'll earn, every time a year goes by, you'll earn 4/5 of a year's worth of service credit at 80%. But that's totally fine. If that's what you need to do, you can just, keep on doing that. Now, one thing that is really nice is that you're not penalized regarding the salary calculation if you're working less than full time. So when I was showing you the salary slide where for tier 1, it's the highest year is your final compensation period for the purposes of calculating your salary. And for tiers 2 and 4, it's the highest 3 years of consecutive pay periods. Well, if any of those pay periods are less than full time, what we'll do is we'll find additional pay periods to smash together with that to get you to the equivalent of 1 year of full-time pay or 3 years of full-time pay. So working less than full-time does not count against you when we calculate your salary. Okay, let me talk about some additional benefits. And let's see. Yeah, we're right on time here. Acera also offers some additional benefits besides the retirement allowance. We have medical, dental, vision, and other non-guaranteed benefits. So remember the retirement allowance is guaranteed. The cost of living adjustment is guaranteed. These medical, dental, and vision and other benefits are not guaranteed benefits. There's also disability retirement, which is the opportunity, if you become permanently disabled, to apply for a different type of retirement called disability retirement that has some additional benefits that go along with it. And if you're permanently disabled and you can no longer perform your job duties, you can apply for that. And if you're awarded a disability retirement, like I said, there are some benefits to that. And if you want to explore that further, we have a disability retirement page out on our website where there's a lot of detail in there. And then death benefits. So let me tell you about the medical, dental, vision benefits a little bit, and then the death benefits. I'm not gonna talk about these for very long in the first half. I will talk in detail about these in the second half of the presentation for the people who are getting ready to retire. But for this half of the presentation, let me just talk a little bit about these. The non-guaranteed benefits, what these are, they're mostly healthcare benefits, and they're benefits that the county decided in the 80s that county retirees needed some additional benefits to help pay for their lives in retirement. And so they started this reserve fund called the Supplemental Retiree Benefits Reserve that Acera administers. And the money in that fund pays for these benefits. Now, our board of retirement at Acera is in charge of administering this fund, and their whole job is to ensure that fund stays sustainable into the future. So they might reduce or eliminate benefits or just tweak the benefits a little bit here and there, which they sometimes do, in order to maintain the sustainability of that fund and make sure it lasts into the future for all the future retirees who retire and you want access to like healthcare benefits and these types of benefits. So that's just my little spiel for reminding everyone that yes, there are healthcare benefits. They're not guaranteed, but they're actually fairly good. And we offer a higher level of these type of benefits than any county in California. Now, for the new employees and the mid-career employees, like I said, the board sometimes will change the benefits gradually. So the landscape of these additional benefits could look a little bit different by the time you go to retire. My prediction would be that they will, continue to try to cover healthcare. But the main thing that I want you all to know at this point is just what's on this slide in this column, the years of Acera service credit to qualify for each of these benefits. And this is kind of in terms of career planning. I'll just list out the benefits real fast. There's this medical subsidy, which is known as the monthly medical allowance. That's the name of our medical subsidy. And there's 3 levels of it. There's a dental subsidy, a vision subsidy to help pay for the cost of being enrolled in our dental and vision plans, a Medicare subsidy that helps you cover the cost of being enrolled in Medicare, and a supplemental cost of living adjustment that acts on top of the vested cost of living adjustment. Now you'll notice that the minimum requirements for most of these benefits is 10 years of Acera service credit, and that reciprocal service credit does not count here. Supplemental cost of living adjustment is the only one that everyone has access to, all retirees. And then there's 2 levels, there's 2 more years of Acera service credit that you would need to qualify for the next 2 levels of the monthly medical allowance. So the reason I'm talking about this in terms of career planning is that maybe you have already worked here for 9.5 years and you're thinking about going and doing something else. Well, maybe you want to think about sticking it out and getting over the 10-year mark, because that getting over that mark will represent a lot of additional cash, because you're going to need medical and healthcare coverage anyway, and otherwise you would have to spend a lot of your own money on it. So the medical subsidy, dental, vision, and Medicare subsidy is going to represent a lot of additional cash in retirement. So it might be good to shoot for these milestones here. And that's why I like to come in here and add the first healthcare subsidy milestone, which is at 10 years. So this is something to definitely consider when you're planning out your career. Okay, let me talk about the death benefits and talk about designating your beneficiary or beneficiaries. So your beneficiary, or let's just say a beneficiary is someone who gets benefits. Now, your ACERA beneficiary is the person that you designate to get your ACERA death benefits after you die. So let me show you a list of, or a breakdown of the death benefits. In the second half of the presentation, I will tell you all about the death benefits that your beneficiaries will be eligible for after you retire. In the first part of the presentation, what I'm showing you here is just the benefits that are available to your beneficiaries should you die before retirement. So hopefully that doesn't happen, but there are death benefits that would go to your beneficiaries should you die before retirement. Okay, first off, if you're not vested, meaning that you have not yet achieved 5 years of service credit, your beneficiary or beneficiaries would receive basically a refund of your employee contribution account, the balance of your contribution account, which contains all of your employee contributions and all of the interest that we have posted to your account based on all the interest that that money has earned. And they would get 1 month of your salary for each year of service that you have already completed, up to 6 months worth of salary. So, for example, if you worked here for 4 years and you died, your beneficiary would get a return of your contributions and interest, plus they would get 4 months worth of your salary for each one of those 4 years that you've already completed. Okay, now, if you're vested, your beneficiaries have more options. They get a choice, and you don't pre-designate this choice. We offer this choice to them at the time. Option number 1 is the same. So they still have that option, the return of the contributions and interest, plus the 1 month of salary for each year of service up to 6 months. Alternatively, if your beneficiary is a spouse, state registered domestic partner, or Alameda County domestic partner, or minor children, they could get a monthly survivor's allowance. Now, if it's a spouse or domestic partner, that survivor's allowance would continue for the rest of their life. They would get it every month for the rest of their life. If it's a minor child or minor children, you could name them and they would get an allowance, but it would cut off at age 18 unless they maintain enrollment as a full-time student in an accredited school. And then it can continue until age 22, at which point it would cut off. Option 3 is kind of a hybrid of options 1 and 2. So option 3 gives you a lump sum that's paid out all at once, the 1 month of salary for each year of service up to 6 months worth, and then a reduced monthly survivor's allowance. So it's kind of a hybrid of options 1 and 2. Those are the 3 choices your beneficiaries would receive if you die. If you're in active status, which means you have a job currently with one of our employers, our 6 employers, and you're vested. So these would be the options for that. Now, if you're a deferred member, and I think I mentioned this terminology earlier, but let me remind you what it is. A deferred member is a NACERA member who has terminated their employment and they have deferred their retirement to a later date. So they have not retired yet. And so they're in deferred status. They're still a NACERA member, but they're not retired yet. And they're not currently working, what we call an active member. So you have active members, deferred members, and retired members. If you die as a deferred member, your beneficiaries would still receive death benefits, but it would be a return of the balance of your contribution account, the employee contributions and interest. Okay, now there's more info. There are more details about those death benefits on our death benefits page at acera.org/death. One thing that I would like to emphasize here is to keep your beneficiary designations current, because active members and even deferred members, you can change your beneficiaries at any time. And the way that you do that is on our beneficiary designation form that you can find on our forms page. And I highly suggest you check your beneficiaries, because who's your beneficiary? Did you designate a beneficiary? Do you remember? We gave you the opportunity to do that on your member enrollment questionnaire. That may have been a long time ago. Maybe you skipped that section. Who knows? Well, you can know if you log into your account on our website. So you log in, you click the nominated beneficiaries link, and it will show you who your current nominated beneficiary is. If you get here and you find the section is blank, I think it's a good idea to go ahead and nominate a beneficiary, and then we don't have to hunt down a next of kin for you to figure out how to disperse your assets. If you get in here and you find that your beneficiary is your spouse from 3 spouses ago, you're probably going to want to go ahead and redesignate your beneficiary. And you can do that. There's some links on the page, and it will take you right out to the beneficiary designation form. You can send that to us through email. You can send that to us through Quick Code. You can send that to us through the US mail. I recommend not sending it through email. If you want to do it electronically, what I recommend is filling out the form, scanning it in, like printing it out, signing it, scanning it in. And then I think under web forms, there might actually be another link here now. I might need to update this screenshot. It says upload a form or upload a document. And you can click on that, and it's a secure upload, and it goes straight into your account. And as soon as we receive your beneficiary designation form, that is when your beneficiary is redesignated. So it doesn't matter if we've processed the form yet and put it in the database. As soon as we receive it, your beneficiary is redesignated. So you could redesignate your beneficiary as of today if you log into your account and you find that you need to update that. Okay, so moving right along, we have about a little over 20 minutes left, and that's, I think, just enough time to talk about this topic, which I think is the last topic. Understand career planning options, the last topic in the first half. Okay, so what I mean by career planning options is that you are not going to work for your employer forever, for eternity. There's going to be some point in the future where you stop working for your employer. That's just the way our universe works. And so what are your options regarding your Acera membership when you stop working for your employer? I'm going to show you 2 main options, and then on the second option, I'm going to show you 3 sub options for the second option. The 2 main options, the first one is that you can retire. So if you stop working for your employer and you're eligible to retire, you can just go ahead and retire. And if you do that, that means that you're working straight into retirement. You will be earning service credit right up until your retirement. We will convert your sick leave on a 2-to-1 basis to service credit. I'll take a deep dive into that in the second half of the presentation. And you could go work anywhere else if you want. And we don't care. We consider you an Acera retiree. You could retire from Acera at age 52 if you're a tier 4 member, or 50 if you're a tier 1 or tier 2 member, and you have a lot of energy and working years ahead of you. If that's that's the case for you, so you could go work somewhere else, and we're just going to pay you that lifetime monthly retirement allowance every month for the rest of your life. And of course, and you get your Acera retirement at the same time. And yep, That's the last thing I wanted to say about that. Okay, option number 2 is maybe you don't retire immediately when you stop working for your employer. Okay, so I'm going to show you 3 sub options if that's the case. And I'm going to, because we've already labeled the first 2 1 and 2, I'm going to call these A, B, and C. So we're talking about, now I've moved the your termination date milestone back a little bit so that there's some distance between this and your retirement date. So now there's a gap here. So what are your options? Options A, B, and C. Option A, if you terminate your employment and don't immediately retire from Acera, you can become a deferred member. So I've already mentioned this a couple of times. This is where you stop working for your employer and you defer your retirement to a later date. So you don't retire immediately. And you're still an Acera member. And the only thing that you need to defer your membership is simply leave your contributions on deposit with Acera. So you don't take a refund, and that makes you a deferred Acera member. And therefore, you're still an Acera member. Interest will continue to accumulate in your employee contribution account. You're not going to be making contributions anymore because you're not actively working. And the only way that you can contribute to the fund is by contributing from your paycheck. But interest will continue to accumulate because we tend to earn a lot of interest over long periods of time. And you'll note that it says no negative interest. And people ask me what I mean by that. What I mean is there's no risk. We never take money out of your account. If we lose some money on paper in the short term on our investments, we don't do anything to your account. We don't take any money out of your account. You don't lose any money. So if our return in a particular year is like -2, for example, your return for that year would just be 0 because we, and I mean percentage, -2% and 0%, because we don't take money out of your account. I mean, it's a really amazing place to keep your money parked. If you look at our interest page, when we do post our historical interest rates, you'll see that we tend to earn maybe around 7% per year annualized over long periods of time. I can't think of anywhere that you can park your money for 0 risk that you earn 7%. So it's a very safe place to keep your money. You can even retire later out of deferred membership. Sometimes people will do that because they stop working younger than the minimum retirement age. Like you're 48 and you're done working. And maybe if you're in tier 2, you're like, I can't take another 2 years, I'm done. So you're not eligible to retire yet. And then you can just become a deferred member, wait 2 years, and then retire at age 50. So that would be a good reason to defer. Or you could come back to work later and earn more. So let's say you leave your job, you go do something else, you defer, and then you decide to come back here because you want to, you find a better situation here with a different job, or you just miss your old job, or you just want to earn more credit toward retirement with Acera, you can do that. And if you come back to work here, you become an active member again, and you pick back up right where you left off. You start contributing to the retirement system again, and you start earning more service credit. You could also, as a deferred member, be refunded at any time. So if you stop working here and you don't know what to do yet regarding your Acera account, you don't have to make a decision immediately. You can just become a deferred member. And then later at some point, if you do decide you want to take a refund, which you'll see is going to be option C, you can do that. And you can do that later. You could be refunded at any time. If you are considering becoming a deferred member, we have a lot more information out on our deferred page. If you go to acera.org/defer, there's way more information for you. And it will give you a list of good reasons to defer. And maybe there's a couple of not so good reasons to defer in there. So that's option A. Okay, option B, if you stop working for your employer but don't retire yet, what you can do is you can establish reciprocity with another retirement system in California. We have a reciprocal agreement with many cities in California. all of the other counties, I think there's 20 of them that have their own pension funds called 1937 Act counties. Also, all of the counties that don't, but use CalPERS as their retirement system, which I think the rest of them do. So that means we have reciprocity with every county. Also, all the state jobs, because CalPERS is the state's retirement system, similar to ACERA for Alameda County. The state has CalPERS, and any agency that uses CalPERS as their retirement system, we have reciprocity with. And there's a full list out on our website. So establishing reciprocity is linking ACERA with one of these other pension systems. And I mentioned earlier that when you do that, you gain some synergy between the systems. And when I say synergy, I mean there's certain benefits to establishing reciprocity. One of those benefits, those synergistic effects, is that the service credit you earn in all the systems combined will get you past the vesting requirements and retirement eligibility requirements. So let's say that you have worked here for 5 years. Now let's say you worked here for 3 years and you're over age 50 already. And you decide to take a job over in Contra Costa County that pays more. So you go over there, you work for 2 years. Okay. That's combined between the 3 years here and the 2 years over there. That's 5 years. And as long as you're over age 50 for tier 1 and 2 and 52 for tier 4, you can retire. So that's how the service credit works synergistically between all the systems. The other thing that's synergistic is the highest average salary. When you go to retire and you establish reciprocity and you go to retire, so you link at least 2 systems together and you go to retire. You retire from those systems on the same day. And when that happens, each system will do they'll do their own retirement calculation. So let's say that you work here for 10 years and you're making $20 an hour at the end. You go find a job in San Francisco County making $40 an hour. And you work there for 5 years. When you go to retire, you retire from both of those systems at the same time. We will each do a calculation. ACERA will, let's say San Francisco County will use your 5 years of service credit over there. They'll use your age factor percentage from their system, whatever it is, and they'll use your salary from over there because it's higher. When ACERA does our calculation, we'll use your 10 years that you worked here. We'll use your age factor percentage here. But when we get to the salary component of the formula, we will see in our system you have reciprocity. We'll call San Francisco County up and we will determine who has the highest salary. And in this example, they do. So we'll use their salary. So you'll get a much higher pension from ACERA than you would have gotten had you not established reciprocity and earn a higher salary somewhere else. And then we'll each send you a separate retirement check. And then if you're in tiers 1 and 2, going to a different system and establishing reciprocity will in many cases, keep your contribution rate lower than it would have been. That doesn't work for tier 4 because everyone in tier 4 has a flat contribution rate, whereas tiers 1 and 2, it's based on age of entry into the system. Okay, in order to qualify for reciprocity, you need to do 4 things. 1, you need to defer and leave all your contributions on deposit with every system that you're linking together. So in that example, maybe you work a couple of years over in San Francisco County. Then you decide, I want to try something else. I'm going to go work up in Marin County. You go up there and work for a few years. You don't like it there. You find a different job over maybe down in LA County. You go down there for a couple of years. You can link all of those systems together and get that synergistic effect from the reciprocity, as long as there's no more than a 6-month gap between when you terminate one job and start employment in the next job. So if there's less than a 6-month gap, then you can link as many systems together as you want. The third thing that you need to do to qualify for reciprocity, you need to have no more than 12 weeks of overlapping service. It's best just to have no overlapping service. It's just cleanest. And so when I say overlapping service, that's where like you take a vacation here at the end of your career, like you have 2 weeks on the books and you take that 2 weeks and you immediately start another job for another system, that's considered overlapping service. So it used to be we didn't allow any. It used to be 0. Then they our attorneys reinterpreted the law, and now it's 12 weeks, but I'm not sure what other systems do. So it's best just to like leave cleanly. They're going to cash you out for your vacation anyway. You don't need to take it at the end of your career. And then fourth, you need to retire from all the systems on the same day. Okay, there's a question. How is the calculation of sick leave done to convert to service credit? I do talk about that. That's my very first topic in the second half of the presentation. So if you want to stick around just for that, it's not that long of a discussion. So I'll save that question for then. And then second question, is there a deadline to apply for reciprocity? Interesting question. So the deadline to apply for reciprocity is that you need to do it prior to retirement. So that's the deadline. You don't need to do it immediately. There's a very rare example. There's a very rare case where if you applied for reciprocity early in your career and you then retired with a service-connected disability, and there's a bunch of other factors that are in place, it could make it so that you get less than you would have, but it's a very rare instance. But you really don't need to apply for reciprocity immediately. You could do it at any time. Now, having said that, going back one slide, if you're in tiers 1 and 2 and you go to a new job, you may want to apply for reciprocity because it will put you in an earlier tier at the new. It could put you in an earlier tier at the new pension fund, and you could get better benefits for being in an earlier tier. And it could, like I said, keep your contribution rate lower. So that's just something to consider. What we recommend is if you have any questions about whether or not you want to establish reciprocity, you can just contact us. And our contact info is going to be at the end of this. It's going to be the last slide, but it's acera.org/contact. Okay, so those are the first two options when you leave your employer but don't retire immediately. It's options A and B. Option C is taking a refund of your employee contribution account. So what you would be doing is telling us that you don't want to be an Acera member anymore. You just want to cancel your membership and take a refund of your contribution account, and that is your right to do if you want to. So we would give you back all your employee contributions and interest. If you are looking for a lump sum payment to put in like your checking or savings account, you will likely lose 1/3 of your money right off the bat to taxes and penalties. The penalties come if you're younger than 59 and you're doing that, because it's a penalty for early withdrawal from a retirement account. But we do have to withhold taxes. Now, you can avoid that by rolling over that money into a pre-tax retirement account. And there's some examples here. These can take time. These can take 45 or 60 or more days. So it's not an instantaneous thing. And like I said, you're waiving all your rights to Acera benefits. Mostly, in most cases, if you sit down and do the math, I think that you will find that if you are already a vested member, it does not make financial sense to take a refund. It's up to you. It's, of course, your decision. And let me tell you why. Because at some point, you are going to become eligible to retire from Acera, whether when you reach 50 or 52, depending on your tier. And once that happens, we'll start paying you a lifetime benefit. In the first 3 to 5 years of payments, we are already going to give you back all of your employee contributions and interest. So you're already going to get that money back. So let's say that you retire at age 50. Between the ages of 50 and 53 or 55, we basically already are going to refund you your employee contributions and interest. Let's say that you live another 30 years till 85. For that next 30 years, you're getting payments that you would not have gotten had you taken the refund for the rest of your life. So in the long term, I think you get way more money if you are able to retire from a SERA. Now, for those people who are planning on leaving prior to vesting, prior to earning 5 years, it's something that you have to consider because you have to wait until age 70 to start drawing a benefit. So yeah, it's definitely something to consider. But I did mention that it is a safe place to park your money, and we do earn a good amount of interest. We historically over the long term, we have earned a lot of interest. Okay, so there is an article. I don't really have time to go into financial planning. I do a short piece on that normally during the new employee mid-career webinar, but I don't really have time for that. And really, the article out on our website is probably more comprehensive than what I do in the webinar anyway. Let me just show you how to get there. You can type in acera.org/planning, or you can just go under members and go down to planning your future retirement income. So the idea here for this page is primarily for new employees and mid-career employees, and this is to help you paint a picture of your future retirement income. And the assumption here is that if you're pre-retirement, if you're getting ready to retire, you've already probably done a lot of this. So you already understand what you're going to be getting from a SERA. So this is a step-by-step process to get a picture of that future retirement income. And we call it stress-free retirement planning because we give it to you step by step. I know that it can seem stressful to wonder if you're going to have enough income in retirement, but if you just go through the steps here, it helps you get a SERA estimate, helps you understand where your income is going to come from when you're a retiree, the different places that it's going to come from. There's links out to the Social Security estimator to get a Social Security estimate. Then there's links to calculators that will help you figure out whether your SERA pension plus the Social Security will be enough to help you maintain your standard of living. And if not, how much extra to save. So it will help you get pointed in the trajectory of achieving that 70 to 80% income replacement that financial planners will tell you that you need to achieve to maintain your standard of living. And then it gives you a whole bunch of information. Now that you know how much additional money to save, it gives you a whole bunch of options for saving, for places to park that money so that it can grow. One of the best places to park it is a 457B account. That is it's kind of like a 401k, but it's for government employees, and it's something that you have access to as government employees. And there's information, that's actually one of the steps is starting one of those accounts. And it gives you contact information on who to contact to start up a 457B account. And then, there's more information about that. So that's my little pitch for painting taking a little time out. It might take you 10 minutes to go through the first three or four steps. Once you get to the retirement calculator, I don't know, it could take you like 20 minutes total. And I recommend taking a little bit of time out and just going ahead and going through those steps at this point, early in your career or in your mid-career. If you have questions for us at any time, and when I say at any time, I mean during business hours, you can contact us at our phone number 510-628-3000. But if you have questions outside of business hours and you want to email us, feel free to do that at acera.org/contact. There's a email form there, and it'll go right to us, and we'll try to get to that within the next 48 business hours. Okay, so to those new employees or mid-career employees that aren't going to stick around for the second half of the presentation, thank you for listening to my pitch to you on your ACERA benefits. And on behalf of ACERA's Board of Retirement and ACERA staff, we wish you a fulfilling career. So thank you very much. Okay, it is 2:45. Let's go ahead and get started on part 2. So this is information if you are getting ready to retire, maybe in the next 3 years, maybe the next 5 years, or maybe you're just curious about seeing what this information is and seeing some of the rest of the nuts and bolts of how Acera works. So first off, I'm going to talk about what happens to your unused sick leave, and this will go to answer that question that's still up on the board. What happens to your unused sick leave? So if you go straight from active work into retirement, we will convert your unused sick leave to service credit. And when I say straight from active work into retirement, what I mean is that your last day on payroll is the day before your first day of retirement. Another way to say that is your last day in active pay status, your last day in your job, that is the day before your retirement date, or your retirement date is the next day after that last day on payroll. There's no gap here. That means that you're going straight into retirement from active employment. So if you do that, we will convert your sick leave to additional service credit on a 2-to-1 basis. So we take your sick leave that you have left over on the books up to a cap, and the cap is in your MOU, your Memorandum of Understanding. So in order to find out what the cap is for you, you need to read the Memorandum of Understanding. So we'll take the sick leave that we can convert up to the cap that you have left over on the books. We divide it by 2, and that is how much additional service credit you will get in the formula. So let me give you an example. Many of the MOUs say that the cap is 125 days worth of sick leave that is convertible. So let's say that you stop working, then you retire, you go straight into retirement, and you have 130 days of sick leave left on the books. Okay, well, we're only allowed to convert 125, so you just lose the extra 5. Then we take the 125, we divide it by 2. That gives us 62.5 days of service credit extra that we will add to your service credit. Now, that's not calendar days, that is work days. So that is about 12 plus work weeks. It's maybe right around a quarter year of additional service credit you would get in the formula for you. This does not change your retirement date, so it doesn't push your retirement date out. All this does is it changes the number that we put in the service credit field in the retirement formula for you. So that's how that works. Any questions on that? Okay, well, feel free to ask them if you do. Okay, next topic, and this is kind of a big topic. Let me help you understand how vacation affects the salary component of the retirement formula. Okay, so I'm going to show you this slide again. Remember that we're talking about your final compensation period. So that's for tier 1, it's your highest consecutive year of pay. For tiers 2 and 4, it's your highest consecutive 3 years of pay. And if you're paid, your base pay, of course, during your final compensation period, that is going to be included as salary for calculating your highest average salary. Again, the footnotes, some of them may, some of them may not. Again, you got to look it up. Okay, now we're back down to these 2 bullet points. If you sell vacation, if you sell vacation during that final compensation period, that's called vacation sale, and you'll get cash for that. Some of that could be included as salary for the purposes of calculating your highest average salary. Vacation cash out is where you have vacation left over on the books when you stop working and or retire. When you have vacation left over in the books and you stop working, your employer will cash you out for that vacation. And when you get cash out for it, that means they write you a check for it. That means you receive compensation for it. And if you receive compensation for it during that final compensation period, that can increase your salary. Okay. And again, we're just talking about tier 1 and tier 2 people for this vacation inclusion as salary topic. Okay. Tier 4 doesn't count because the state disallowed this when they created tier 4, when they created the Pension Reform Act in 2012. Okay, so what we're talking about again, during your final compensation period, vacation sales are where you sell vacation back to your employer while you're still employed. And again, vacation cash out is you have vacation left over in the books at termination or retirement. What we're talking about is the total amount of those two that is paid to you during your final compensation period. So we're going to be looking at total vacation compensation through a combination of vacation sales and vacation cash out. Or maybe you have one or the other. Okay, so maybe one is zero, but we're looking at the total of these. Now, just a little side note here. This is assuming that you are making the highest rate of pay at the end of your career, in which case the vacation cash out would count. That would be in your final compensation period. Some of you, your final compensation period might not be at the end of your career because maybe you were making a higher rate of pay earlier in your career. Your final compensation period would then get shifted to an earlier set of consecutive pay periods earlier in your career when you made more money. And in that case, if you had sold vacation during that time, then that would increase your salary for the purposes of calculating your retirement. Otherwise, and the vacation cash out would not. Okay, so mostly when we're talking about this, we're using the example of people who are making the highest rate of pay at the end of their career, in which case the vacation cash out is a viable opportunity. And also, this is a period of time that, there's some more time left where you can make some of these moves. Okay. So the idea here is that if you are compensated for your earned vacation during that final compensation period, that means you made more money during that final compensation period. Your total salary is a little bit higher. If your total salary is higher, when we take an average of your salary over that time, your average salary will turn out to be a little bit higher. Now, your average salary is one of the three multipliers in the retirement formula. A higher average salary equals a higher retirement allowance. So the bottom line here is that getting compensated for your earned vacation increases your retirement allowance. How much does it increase your retirement allowance? Here is a chart that shows you some approximations. If you're in tier 2 and you are compensated for 6 weeks of your earned vacation, either through selling it or through cashing it out during that final compensation period, that would increase your retirement allowance 3.8%. At the time of your retirement for the rest of your life. If you were able to have 8 weeks worth included, it would increase your retirement allowance 5% immediately at retirement and for the rest of your life. So that's why this is a topic that people are curious about, because this does give a little boost to your retirement allowance. For those tier 1 people, the boost is accelerated because of the 1-year final compensation period. These are all approximations. These are all approximate percentages. It's not going to be exactly this, but I just show you this slide to give you an idea of why you might want to, think about this topic. Okay, now there's a cap on how much vacation a SARA is allowed to include as compensation for calculating your highest average monthly salary. But you'll notice in the slide it says must include. Well, the cap is defined by state law. And the state law also says that some of this vacation compensation that you receive is your compensation that we need to use to calculate your retirement. So we must include it. So if we must include it, I might as well, explain to you the ins and outs of how we calculate this so you can understand your benefits better. Okay, so I don't need that slide because nobody here works for AHS. Okay, so let me help you figure out your cap, what your cap is going to be, because it's going to be individual based on your situation. So what you are seeing here, you can get out a scratch piece of paper if you want and kind of approximate this. What you're seeing here, when I do the pre-retirement webinar, I have this worksheet that people can fill out as they go along that gives them some it gives them a place to like record the numbers that they learn. And I kind of cut that out of this because we don't really have a lot of time to do that, but I'll show you where you can find it. If you go to our website and you go under news and events, you'll find retirement planning seminars. You click on that. This is our seminars page. If you ever wanted to watch the full new employee mid-career seminar, you can find all of our past recordings linked here, or the pre-retirement seminar, you can find all the past recordings linked here. But if you open up pre-retirement webinar right here, there is a retirement planning worksheet, and you can open that up. It's a PDF. And it's a two-page, two pages, and I suggest pressing the download button. And what I'm going to show you is this little box right here from it. And this is just a box that is, it's a little worksheet that helps you figure out what your limit is of how much cash vacation compensation we are allowed to include as salary for calculating your retirement. So let me go back to the presentation so you can see everything a little bit better. Let me check on this question here. Okay, so the question is, for tier 4, we can cash out vacation, but the dollars won't be included for calculating the retirement, the salary for retirement. Correct, exactly. So you'll still get, if you cash out, you'll still get cash that goes in your bank account. You just won't get salary credit for it when we calculate your retirement. Okay, so if you're in tier 1, what you need to know here, okay, you need to know 2 numbers. Everyone needs to know 2 numbers to figure this out. You need to know how much vacation you earn per year, and it's going to be in weeks. It should be in weeks. So, and it's based on your seniority. So maybe you earn 2 weeks per year, 3 weeks per year, 4 weeks per year, 5 weeks per year. You're going to put that in the first field here. And then you need to know, the second number you need to know is how much your employer will allow you to sell. And that is usually a rule that your employer has somewhere. It might be in the handbook, or it might just be something that everyone knows. Your payroll clerk usually knows what this limit is, how much you're allowed to sell. And so you're going to fill out the worksheet here. Tier 1 members are only going to fill in the first column because you have a 1-year final compensation period. In this example that I'm going to give you, this person earns 5 weeks per year, and they're allowed to sell 2 weeks per year if they want to, if they so choose. So we put those numbers in here. Now, if you're in tier 2, you need to fill out the other 2 columns. And what you're filling them out is you're thinking about your 3-year final compensation period, your 3 years of highest pay. That is going to be used to calculate your retirement. And you will fill in how much vacation you will have earned in each 1 year of that 3-year period. So in this example that I'm going to give you, this person has no change in how much vacation they earn per year over that entire 3 years. They earn 5 weeks of vacation per year, and they have no change in how much they're allowed to sell per year. The reason that the amount of earned vacation might change over this 3-year period is you might reach another seniority level. Like I think between 20 and 21 years is when you go from earning 4 weeks to 5 weeks per year. So that's why there might be another, higher number here. And then the reason that the sell might change is maybe there's a union negotiation and everyone's contract gets renegotiated and you can sell less or you can sell more. That might change. This usually doesn't change though, the bottom one. Okay, so now that you've filled in all of the boxes with how much vacation you will have earned for each of the years of your final compensation period and how much what you were allowed to sell, you didn't necessarily have to sell it. It's just how much you were allowed to sell. And you fill in all the boxes. We have a calculator on our website that will tell you what your limit is of how much vacation compensation we can include as salary. I'll show you how to get there. You go out to our website, acera.org, and in your browser, you type in acera.org/vacation, and it's a shortcut, acera.org/vacation. And it will take you right to the spot in the page that has this calculator on it, okay? The heading is understand how unused vacation leave affects your retirement allowance. And then you're going to pop open this first accordion here, and there's a calculator. If you're in tier 1, you can select tier 1 or tier 2. If you're in tier 1, you would just go ahead and put in, you delete the zeros. In the example, the person earns 5 weeks of vacation per year, and they're allowed to sell 2 weeks of vacation per year. And so it gives you a total of what your limit of vacation compensation is that's includable in the salary calculation. If you're in tier 2, it will give you the opportunity to put in 2 more years worth of these numbers. So I'll stick with that example. They earn 5, they're allowed to sell 2, and see it's giving a running total when I'm putting in more numbers. So 6 would be their limit. Now I could tell you how the calculator works. It's not that hard. It's very basic. What it's doing is it's taking the lesser of the number of each one of the years and it's adding those up. So the lesser of 5 and 2 is 2 in all 3 cases. So 2 plus 2 plus 2 is 6. So you don't really even need to use the calculator if you don't want to, now that you know how it works. But if you don't want to think about it, you can just plug it all in. Okay, so there's a screenshot of that. So you put your limit from the calculator into the table here. Okay, now, if your goal is to maximize your retirement allowance through getting this vacation compensation, then you might want to try to achieve vacation compensation for the number of weeks worth up to your limit. So in this example, you might want to get paid for 6 weeks worth of your earned vacation that you're not going to use. And you can do that through a combination, like I was saying earlier, of selling your vacation while you're still employed or simply having it left on the books when you retire. In many cases, in most cases probably, it's easiest just to cash it all out and not worry about selling any. So in this example, this person sells 0 while they're still employed. Then they get cashed out. They simply have 6 weeks of vacation left over on the books when they retire. Their employer will cash them out for that. And we will include 6 weeks worth of that cash as salary for the purposes of calculating their retirement. Now, don't get confused here. You're not buying this from us. You're not paying us 6 weeks worth of money. This cash goes to you. This goes to your bank account, the 6 weeks worth. Because you get paid it, then we see that come through in your payroll records. That is your compensation. And because it's your compensation, we're going to use that compensation up to your limit to calculate your highest average monthly salary. Let me give you one more example, because some of you might have to do another extra step here. The tier 2 members, the tier 1 members, it's easy. I don't think there's any scenario where you have to sell vacation to get up to your limit. But for tier 2 members, there are some scenarios. Okay, so in this example, this person earns 4 weeks of vacation per year, and they're in tier 2, and that's true for all 3 years of their 3-year final compensation period. And in all 3 years, their employer would let them sell 3 weeks worth if they wanted to. That was the employer's rule. Okay, so your employer has one more rule that I want to tell you about, and it's that just before I go there, their limit from the calculator, just for expediency, we won't go out to the calculator, but their limit would be 9, because the lesser of each of these is 3. 3 plus 3 plus 3 is 9. Okay, so your employer has this extra rule. They will only cash you out for 2 times your accrual rate of vacation earnings. This person earns 4 weeks of vacation per year. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 is the maximum amount of vacation that this person can have on the books and get cashed out for. If they had any more than that, if they had an extra week, if they had 9 weeks on the books when they stopped working, that extra week would have gone poof, would have disappeared. They would have gotten nothing for it. That's why if you can't get up to your limit through the cash out alone, that's when you would need to sell vacation. So this person, if they want to get up to the 9, they would need to sell 1 week of vacation before they stop working, have 8 on the books when they stop working, and that would get them up to the total of 9, which would be their limit. Now, some people will ask, what if I already sold a bunch of vacation? So for example, what if this person, sticking with this example, already sold 5 weeks worth of vacation and their limit is 9? Well, what are their options? Well, you really have two options. Option number one is to just cash out the difference. So they sold 5 weeks of vacation at some point during their highest 3 years of pay, their last 3 years in this example. And they know their limit is 9, so they can just cash out the difference. They can make sure they have 4 on the books. 5 plus 4 is, of course, 9, and that gets them up to their limit. Alternatively, option number 2 is you can cash out more, and it's okay. Just as long as you don't have more than 2 times your accrual rate on the books. So again, you don't want to have more in this scenario. You don't want to have more than 8 on the books. So this person could cash out up to 8. And that means they got paid for 13 total weeks. They got paid 5 weeks when they sold, for 5 weeks worth of their earned vacation when they sold it back to their employer while they were still working. All that 5 weeks went into their bank account. Now they stop working. They have 8 weeks left over that they haven't used yet. Their employer cashes them out for the 8 weeks. That goes into their bank account. A Sarah will see all of that money come through in your payroll records when your employer transmits that to our software. So what we will do, what our software will do automatically, is it will take the 13 weeks that you were paid and it will just take 9 weeks worth of that pay out and include 9 weeks worth up to your limit as salary for the purposes of calculating your retirement. So that's how that works. Any questions on the vacation, how the vacation affects your salary before I move on? And there is one question there up on the board. I will answer that in just 1 minute. Okay, I'll just go ahead and answer the question that's up on the board. How does vacation buy affect your retirement? So I did refer to this earlier. So let me just mention it again. When you purchase additional vacation and you go out on that purchased vacation, so you mark your timesheet as using up your purchased vacation allowance that you purchased, you don't earn service credit while you're out on that purchased vacation. So if you purchase 1 week of vacation in a particular year and you went out on that purchased vacation, you would have earned 52 weeks worth of service credit, but instead you earned 51 weeks of service credit. Now, like I was saying earlier, it's not that huge of a deal, especially if you have a long career. It's not going to affect your retirement allowance like a huge amount to buy vacation here and there. If you wanted to, you could like tack on work an equivalent amount of weeks at the end of your career, just to like make up for it if you wanted to even it out. But I would just like run your retirement estimate and retire whenever you feel like you will have enough of a retirement estimate to retire, and not sweat it over like a few weeks that you purchased here and there. You also cannot buy that time back, and that time has no effect on the salary component. It has no effect on the salary component of your retirement. Okay, so let me move on to the next topic here, because we do have quite a few things to cover in the next 50 minutes. I mentioned this earlier. There are some benefit limits on your monthly payments, so I'll just mention it quickly again. Your retirement allowance is capped at 100% of your highest average monthly salary, whatever we calculate that to be. So really, what it's trying to do is make it so that you're not making more in retirement than you were making while you were working. But as we just learned, your highest average monthly salary can be a slight bit higher if you get compensated for the vacation. And so then your retirement allowance would be capped at that amount. Now you got to work here for 30, 40 some years to even get anywhere near 100% in salary replacement. But if you do, you're in good shape, because that means you will be making in retirement what you were making while you were working. Now there's two limits here that are for people who have really high salaries. So I won't talk about those. I'll let you check out that information on your own. We do have more information out on our webpage at sarah.org/limits. And then we already talked about the tier 4 cap for calculating highest average salary. Okay, now let me show you. And I actually already did this in the first half of the presentation, so I can just go through it quickly again, how to get the retirement benefit estimate for yourself, the custom precision retirement estimate. You log into our website, go to sarah.org, press the login button. Once you've logged in, press estimate a benefit. Put in a couple of dates, zooming in here, that fit your retirement scenario. Separation date and projected retirement date. Separation date is your last day on payroll. Projected retirement date is your first day of retirement. Hit calculate. It will project service credit and salary for you. You can put in beneficiary information, hit get estimate, and you end up with this PDF estimate. And again, zooming in, it's this column right here that you'll be looking at for what your estimate will be for each of the options, retirement options. Now, I am going to, yeah, somebody says, referring to the high limits with the high salaries, I doubt that's any of us, laugh out loud. Yep. Me too. I'm sorry. I'm with you. So let's hang on to this. I'll talk about the different retirement options in a few minutes, and it will help you understand like what the differences are between the different estimates that it's giving you on the sheet. So this is what we're talking about when we're talking about retirement estimates. You do have the opportunity, if you like, the option of requesting that we do the calculation for you. However, it uses the same software that you can use out on the website, so it's going to get the same result. And there's a wait time because we have a queue with all the people that are requesting this. And then once we're done calculating it, one of our staff members calculates it, then they send you a letter in the mail. So you got to wait for that. You wait for the queue. You got to wait for the letter in the mail. It's just way faster to do it this way, to get this one. You can do this in 5 minutes or less. Okay, before I move on to the next topic, let me address this question that just came up regarding divorce and whether an ex-spouse will collect retirement. Okay, let me see here. I think you might be asking, tell me if this is correct. If you retire, then you get divorced, will your ex-spouse still be your continuance beneficiary who will get paid payments after your death? Is that what you're asking? And yeah, feel free to type in and follow up. And otherwise, I'll just assume that that's your question. And the short answer is no, because at that point you would redesignate your beneficiary and you would pick somebody else. And so the ex-spouse would not get the lifetime payments after your death. But having said that, in the negotiation for splitting the assets, they would likely get something for themselves. And if you divorce after you retire and you are unable to negotiate with your ex-spouse to not take any part of your pension benefit, what will likely happen is we will divide the check. So they would get a piece of your retirement allowance starting at the time of the divorce, and then they would get paid for the rest of their life. So it all depends on how you negotiate that settlement with them. And it would be definitely a good idea to find a very skilled divorce attorney to try to help you navigate that negotiation. Okay, so let me tell you about choosing your retirement date. There's some things that you're going to want to think about, and we're talking about this day on the pension milestone chart, the date that you choose that you are ready to retire. Oh, you are absolutely welcome. And I recommend also checking out acera.org/divorce. We have a page on divorce, and it tells you how divorce can affect your ACERA benefits. Okay, so we'll go through each one of these topics. There's 6 topics that I want to talk about regarding choosing a good retirement date. And I'm going to kind of go through these fast because I do need to leave some time to talk about the healthcare benefits, which are very important, and the death benefits. So number 1 is, will you have enough income to retire? This, of course, is, a little bit goes without saying that you are going to want to go ahead and get some estimates from ACERA, from Social Security, know how much is in your deferred comp, and have an idea before you retire of what your income is going to look like post-retirement. We do have an article out on our website that is more of a comprehensive step-by-step process on that. And a lot of the stuff that I'm going to be talking about in the next few minutes is going to be in this prepare to retire section. So you go down to ready to retire and go to prepare to retire. And it's this post right here, estimate your retirement income. And it takes you step by step through, making sure you have enough to retire on, or just seeing how much you have to retire on. Okay, number 2, the second thing that you're going to want to think about when choosing your retirement date are those age factor percentage dates. If you are still young enough where your age factor percentage amounts are continuing to go up, and remember, this is the age factor percentage chart. And so if you're younger than the blue box, where the blue box intersects for your tier, every quarter year, your age factor percentage is still continuing to go up. So because of that, you're going to want to be cognizant of these dates. You take your birthday, you add 3 months, you add 6 months, you add 9 months on the same date. So in this example, January 15th, April 15th, July 15th, and October 15th. After you pass each one of these days, you essentially age 1 quarter a year, and you get a slightly higher age factor percentage. So what you don't want to do is retire right before one of these dates. If you retired on July 14th, you wouldn't want to do that, because if you retired on July 15th, you'd get a slightly higher age factor percentage, and your retirement allowance would increase by waiting that one day somewhere between 1 and 1.9% by just waiting that one day. Okay, and the same goes for all of these. You just have to retire as of that quarter year date, and you get the next higher age factor percentage. So what I'm not saying is you have to retire immediately after one of these dates or on one of these dates. I'm just suggesting that you're going to want to know what these dates are and not retire right before one. If you're retiring like midway between these two, 6 weeks before one, and that's the timing that you need to go, that's when you need to go, and that you just go ahead and retire then. You don't have to wait 6 weeks to get past the next date. Okay, just don't retire right before one. Okay, next topic, cost of living adjustment. The cost of living adjustment, again, is a vested benefit. It's known as the COLA. It's the abbreviation. It's calculated annually based on inflation in the Bay Area from December to December, as measured by the Consumer Price Index. It's posted on April 1st for everyone who's in retired status. So if you're in retired status on April 1st, even if it's your first, that's your retirement date, you get the cost of living increase for that year. If you retire on April 2nd, you miss that year's cost of living increase, but when the next April 1st comes around, you get that COLA. Next April 1st comes around, and every April 1st after that for the rest of your life, you get the COLA. So if prices go up, let's say 5% from December to December, that becomes the cost of living adjustment percentage we're looking at, except there's a maximum cost of living adjustment that we can give you. If you're in tier 1, it's 3%. Tiers 2 and 4, it's 2%. The extra percentage points we will put into your COLA bank for you and save for future years when inflation is less than the maximum. So if next year inflation was 1%, we would take percentage points out of your COLA bank, add it to the 1% to get you up to your 2 or 3% maximum if we can. And in most cases, if you've already been retired for like 2 or 3 years, you have bank percentages and you just tend to get the maximum 2 or 3% every year for the rest of your life. That's just how it tends to work. Okay, now, sometimes there's a conflict between the age factor percentage and the COLA. So let's say you're one of those people who the age factor percentages are continuing to increase because you have not yet reached the maximum age factor percentage for your tier. You're going to retire in the spring. And let's take the January 15th birthday example again, because that's a good example for when there's a conflict. So if my birthday is January 15th, and I'm a general member age 54, should I retire on April 15th? Oh, thank you. I'm so sorry. I did not go back. Where did I go astray here? I went astray here. Okay. Sorry about that. I did not change the shares so that I would go back to the slide presentation. So I think though that yeah, again, the cost of living increase, the maximum is 3% and 2%. It's 3% for tier 1, 2% for tiers 2 and 4. And then anything excess goes into the COLA bank, and we use that in future years. Sorry about that. And then again, okay, so this is a really good slide, though, to illustrate this point. So if there's a conflict between the age factor percentage and the COLA, let's say, again, my birthday is January 15th. I'm going to retire in the spring, and my age factor percentages are continuing to go up each quarter year. Should I retire on April 15th? I would get the age factor increase for April 15th, but I'd miss the COLA that I would have gotten had I retired on or before April 1st. Or should I go with the COLA, retire on April 1st or right before, miss the age factor increase that I'm going to get in a couple of weeks if I had waited to retire until April 15th, but I get the COLA for that year? Which do I choose? Well, you may know the answer because I already told you the percentages, but if the COLA is the maximum for that year, and we know what it is every February, early February, you're going to go with the cost of living adjustment because you would get a 2% or 3% increase immediately and for the rest of your life versus a 1 to 1.9% increase for the age factor percentage increase. This conflict doesn't necessarily happen a lot. If you are somebody who's not going to retire in the spring, then you just want to think about the age factor percentage dates. If you're already older than the oldest age factor percentage date for your tier, you've already reached the maximum age factor percentage. You just retire whenever you want. But if you do retire like right after the COLA, right after April 1st, it usually, in most cases, would have been more advantageous to retire on or before April 1st to get that COLA. That's why a lot of people retire in March. It's our biggest retirement month, and April 2nd and after is our slowest retirement month just because of that COLA. But if you retire at any other point in the year, there's like really no conflict here. You just retire whenever you want, and when April 1st comes around, you get the cost of living adjustment. Okay, so let me help you continue to choose your retirement date by mentioning again this sick leave conversion thing. If your goal is to go from active employment right into retirement so that we do the sick leave conversion and you get the bonus points for your sick leave, bonus service credit, what you're going to do is make sure that your last day of work is and your retirement date, oh, I'm sorry, excuse me, are 2 consecutive dates. So your retirement date is the next day after your last day of work. So what you do is you write this date, your last day on a payroll, on your letter of resignation. We have a template on our website that you can use. Your first day of retirement, that's what you write on your retirement application. That makes them consecutive dates. You go straight from active work into retirement. We do the sick leave conversion for you. One more detail about that is that you're going to want to retire this day, or your retirement date should be the day where you were scheduled to work on the day before. So if you were scheduled to work on this Friday in this example, it's okay for you to retire on Saturday. For example, if you work Monday through Friday, don't retire on Sunday or Monday, because on Sunday or Monday, you weren't on schedule the day before that. So as long as you do that, you'll be fine. Otherwise, what happens is you may you may spend like a day as a deferred member. If you spend any time as a deferred member, you lose all your sick leave, and we don't convert it. So it's pretty easy to do to make sure that we do the conversion for you. You just have these on 2 consecutive days, and your last day on payroll should be a day that you were scheduled to work. You were on the schedule. It's okay if you're on leave with that day. You can be on vacation leave, sick leave, whatever. Floating holiday, whatever. Okay, let me show you about the retirement application process. Your first step, go through the preparing to retire section. And I just showed you a minute ago where that is. It's here, preparing to retire. Again, you go under members, you go down to preparing to retire, and that's how you get here. And it's a step-by-step process. You've done a bunch of these steps already. We already verified your retirement eligibility. You are already attending a seminar. You already understand how vacation pay affects your pension, but there's some more stuff to go through here. That's step 1. Step number 2, set up a ready to retire counseling session. You go to acera.org/counseling. There's a form there you fill out. In the 3 to 6 months before your retirement date is the best time to set this up. We will contact you and we will set up a counseling session for you within the 90-day period before your retirement date. Then you should submit a retirement application within that 90-day period before your retirement date. You can go to acera.org/retire. Once you schedule the counseling session, though, you'll receive a lot more information and with links and stuff to get right to it. It's a DocuSign form. You submit it online. On the retirement application, you choose your retirement date. You select one of 5 retirement options, and you submit it to us. And once that date passes, you're retired. It's going to be amazing. And that's how that works. And you can expect your first retirement check within 4 to 6 weeks after your last employer's paycheck. Unless there's a major issue with your file, you'll still get a check, but it will be for an 80% check. This almost never happens anymore. And eventually we'll get you up to 100% payments, and we'll issue you any retro payments if we need to. Okay, here are the 5 retirement allowance options. You choose this on your retirement application within that 90 days before your retirement date that you submit. This is your only opportunity to choose the retirement allowance option. So you can't change it later. So it's good to know, but I'll explain to you exactly what each entails, and I think you'll be able to pick pretty easily. There's 5 options, the unmodified option and options 1 through 4. For each one of these options, I'm going to show you a slide. The top will talk about your retirement allowance as a retired person, an ACERA retiree, and the bottom will have info about what your beneficiaries will receive after you die. The first option is the unmodified option. It pays the most retirement allowance of all the other options. To your beneficiary, it pays a 60% monthly continuance. If your and a continuance is a continuing payment. That's a monthly payment that your beneficiary would get every month after you die. And it's going to be 60% of whatever your retirement allowance was at that time. And if your beneficiary is your spouse, state registered domestic partner, or Alameda County domestic partner, it's a lifetime benefit. As long as you married or registered them at least 1 year before retirement, they would get that every month for the rest of their life. You can name minor children if you don't have a spouse or domestic partner, but it's a temporary benefit and it cuts off at age 18 unless they're in school, and it can continue until age 22. If you don't have one of these people to name as a beneficiary, you can still pick the unmodified option. Totally fine. Most people pick the unmodified option. You can even name a beneficiary, but not for a continuance, for a lump sum payment. And that's a one-time payment Basically, we will refund you the balance of your contribution account to your beneficiary, minus all of the retirement allowance payments that we've already paid out to you as a retiree. So if you die after the first 3 to 5 years of retirement, we will actually have already paid out to you everything that you paid in, so there won't be a balance left. But you can still name a lump sum beneficiary. There are some other amounts that you can name them for, including the $1,000 lump sum benefit, and there's some other smaller amounts as well. One more thing I want to point out about this is that if you retire and you name a beneficiary for a continuance, but that person dies before you do, you can name a new beneficiary in retirement, but not for a continuance, only for lump sum payments. So the only opportunity to name a continuance beneficiary is at the time of retirement on your retirement application. So that's the unmodified option. Option number 1 never pays a continuance to anyone at any time. It only pays a lump sum. It pays to you, the retiree, a little bit less than the unmodified option. It might be like $5 or $10 or $20. What this does is through some alternate accounting, it extends the time that it takes for us to exhaust the balance of your contribution account from 3 to 5 years. It extends it out to 10 to 12 years. So if you were to die in that first 10 to 12 years after retirement, there would be a balance left to pay out to a beneficiary. So some people might want to do this who are interested in the unmodified option, don't have a continuance beneficiary, and want to take the chance of leaving a larger lump sum to a lump sum beneficiary. Option number 2 does a couple of things. The first thing it does is rather than pay a 60% monthly continuance, it pays 100%. So whatever your retirement allowance was when you die, your beneficiary will get a lifetime continuance of 100% of that amount. And the second thing it does is it expands the group of people you can name for a lifetime benefit, as a lifetime beneficiary to anyone. It doesn't have to be a family member, it can be a friend, or it can be a nephew, or it can be an adult child. Somebody was asking about leaving a continuance to adult child. Options 2, 3, and 4 will allow you to do that. Now, this pays less to you, the retiree, than the unmodified option, and the reduction is based on the life expectancy of the beneficiary that you select. If your beneficiary is a lot younger than you, then you can expect for your retirement allowance to be reduced fairly significantly because the beneficiary has a long life expectancy and we expect we're going to have to pay them more. Now, if they die before you do, you can name a new beneficiary, but again, only for a lump sum payment. And we also do not recalculate your retirement allowance, even though your beneficiary did not live out their full life expectancy. Whatever your retirement allowance is calculated to be at the time of retirement, that's what it's going to be for the rest of your life, plus the cost of living increases. So that's option 2. Option number 3 is the same as option 2, exact same, except rather than paying 100% continuance for their lifetime to the beneficiary, it pays a 50% continuance. And the reduction is, again, based on the life expectancy's beneficiary's life expectancy. But because it's paying less to the beneficiary than option 2, it's going to pay you more. So when you look at your retirement estimate, you'll see option 3 pays you more than option 2. But all the same rules apply as option number 2. Option number 4 is this gives you a lot of latitude to select what you want to go to your beneficiary in the form of a continuance. You can specify a dollar amount or a percentage to one or more beneficiaries. For options 2 and 3, you can only specify one beneficiary. For option 4, you could specify multiple beneficiaries. And you could specify other percentages besides 50% and 100%. Let's say you have 2 adult children. You look at, let's say you have 1 adult child. You look at option 2, the benefit estimate for that, and you go, oh, it's not going to pay me very much retirement allowance. Like I can't live with that reduction and be financially solvent. Let me look at option 3. You look at the option 3 estimate, same thing. Not great. So what you can do is for option 4, if you wanted to leave a lifetime continuance, you could leave to that adult child, you could leave a smaller one. You could leave 40% or 30% or 20% or 10%, whatever you want, 27%. You could also leave it to multiple adult children. If you have 2 children, you want to leave them each 15%. They would each get 15% for a total of 30%. So you can specify that. The benefit estimator on the website will not give you an estimate for option 4 because there's too many different permutations of what you can do. So you need to ask your counselor when you go into your counseling session for an estimate for option 4 if you're interested in that. And one more thing I'll say about leaving continuances to adult children is it is a really beautiful thing if you intend to do that, and if you're exploring that option. Like, that is a really, really beautiful thing that you want to leave to your adult children, a lifetime continuance. Another beautiful thing that you can leave them, that you can give to them, is your financial solvency throughout the rest of your retirement, so that you never have to go lean on them for income. So whatever you choose, just make sure you're not choosing something that reduces your retirement allowance so much that it makes it hard for you to live your retirement, because you earned this. This is your retirement, and it's likely that your adult children have, depending on their situation, not every case, but probably the majority of cases, they have many more years of earning ahead of them, and they can earn their own retirement. Okay, so again, if you want to get an estimate of what exactly these different options will leave you, you can again do the benefit estimator. When you do it, make sure that the date of birth for your continuance beneficiary is correct. Otherwise, it'll throw off the calculation. And so again, you end up with this PDF estimate. And so now the different options may make a little more sense, because the unmodified option leaves you the most. You can see that it leaves the beneficiary 60%. Option number 1 does not have a continuance. You can see what the reduction from the unmodified option is for options 2 and 3. And you can see what it would leave the beneficiary in both of those cases. You can see that option 3 is going to be more than option 2. Okay, let's talk about healthcare benefits. Because let's see, we have 23 minutes. That is probably exactly the right amount of time to talk about healthcare benefits. So you saw this slide before, so we're already familiar with the fact that these are non-guaranteed benefits and you need a certain number of years of ACERA service credit to qualify. So let me tell you more about each of the medical, dental, vision, Medicare, and supplemental COLA benefits in more detail. First of all, the monthly medical allowance. When you retire, rather than being on your employer's healthcare plans, we offer you the opportunity to enroll in healthcare plans through ACERA. And if you have the minimum years of ACERA service credit to qualify, then we offer you a subsidy to help pay for the cost of being enrolled in those healthcare plans that we offer. The monthly medical allowance is what the name of our medical subsidy. Again, it's not guaranteed. What it does is it offsets the cost of one of our ACERA-sponsored plans. So you can't use it with outside plans, only ACERA-sponsored plan options. For the group plans, it helps you offset the cost of the premiums, which is the monthly cost of being enrolled in the medical plan. For the individual plan options that we also have, it not only helps you offset the cost of premiums, but copays and deductibles as well. The amount is set annually by the Board of Retirement. Again, they're responsible for that reserve fund that pays these medical benefits. And the retiree is responsible for any costs exceeding the MMA. So what that means is that if the MMA isn't enough to cover the full amount of the premium, then you have to pay the difference to be enrolled in the plan. It's not available for other people like beneficiaries or spouses or anyone else, just you, the member. So it subsidizes your health care, and it's only to subsidize your health care, not anyone else's. You can enroll them in your plans. You just have to pay the full premium amount for your family members to be enrolled. And here are the monthly medical allowance amounts for 2023. These are going to go up next year. The board voted just a few days ago to increase these. So these are going to go up by 3 1/8% for 2024. And you can see that the full monthly medical allowance amount, if you have at least 20 years of ACERA service credit, it's $616.12. If you have at least 15 years of service credit, it's $462.09. And at least 10 years of ACERA service credit, it's $308.06. Our plans fall into two categories, or there's one way to divide them. Non-Medicare plans and Medicare plans. And Medicare eligible plans are where you enroll in Medicare, and then the plan offers a higher level of service than Medicare alone. Medicare is the federal government's healthcare system for people age 65 and older. If you are not yet Medicare eligible, then you would choose from the non-Medicare eligible plan options. And you can see that there's Kaiser Permanente and United Healthcare group plan options, and then there's individual plan options through Via Benefits. So I'll tell you about the group plan options, the non-Medicare ones first. I'll tell you about our Medicare group plan with Kaiser second, and then I'll tell you how Via Benefits works with the individual plans, and I'll do that at the same time because it's more efficient. Our open enrollment is November of each year. But you can get right into a plan. So when you retire, that's a qualifying event. We'll get you right into a plan with zero gap in coverage. I'm just showing you some prices. There's full plan details in our annual enrollment guide, and you can find a PDF copy of that at acera.org/guide. And we mail that to you every October, so you can decide if you want to make changes to your plans in November. What you're seeing here is a table, and it's showing you the premium amounts for the non-Medicare group plans. So this is the monthly cost of being enrolled in each one of these plans. You can see United Healthcare Signature Value Advantage HMO is the cheapest. You may recognize this because these are the county's plans. They actually negotiate these group plans for us. So it's the same deal. And so you can see what the self premiums are. You'll also note that even the 20-year monthly medical allowance, which was about $616, does not even cover the full cost of the United Healthcare Signature Value Advantage HMO. So you would end up paying another $200 and some dollars, maybe $220 or thereabouts, $220 something, to be enrolled in that plan just for yourself. The copays are $15. If you did enroll in one of these plans, what you're seeing here is a crude illustration of ACERA's check stub, your pension benefit check stub. And I'm showing you this to illustrate how the premiums work and how you're paid the monthly medical allowance. So, for example, if you enroll in the Kaiser Permanente HMO, you're not Medicare eligible, you enroll in that plan. And this is your gross pension benefit, $4,000. In the deductions column, you will see an amount come out for that plan that you enrolled in. And we will take that money and send it over to Kaiser for you as a courtesy to you so that you maintain enrollment in that plan. So you don't have to worry about paying your premium every month. And if you're eligible for the monthly medical allowance, you would see that show up in the additions column of your check. And this is actually not taxable income. None of the subsidies are taxable. Your gross pay your pension benefit is taxable. You will have to pay income taxes on that because you did not pay income taxes on your employee contributions, but the subsidies are not taxable. Okay, so then you can see that what's happening here is there's 909 coming out for Kaiser and only 616 going back in for the MMA. So you end up paying the difference, and that's how that works. This slide is a table showing you the Medicare plan premium amounts. So if you're Medicare eligible and you want to be in a group plan, we have one option, the Kaiser Permanente Senior Advantage plan. And the premiums are listed across the top. I've also put in an additional two rows here to illustrate a point. If you're eligible for the 20-year monthly medical allowance, I put that here in this row, but you will remember that the 20-year monthly medical allowance was $616. So what happened? Well, the monthly medical allowance, one of the rules is that it only pays up to the amount of the self premium. You don't get to keep the change. So in this case, it becomes exactly the self premium. But the good news is that it makes your out-of-pocket cost zero. So if you have at least 15 years of Acera service credit, it's essentially a free plan to get this upgraded Kaiser plan, which is better coverage than Medicare alone. And you would enroll in Medicare, and then you choose the Kaiser plan, and it sits on top of Medicare, gives you a higher level of coverage. Okay, so that's the group plan options. Let me tell you about the Via Benefits individual plans. Who can enroll in a Via Benefits individual plan? If you're not yet Medicare eligible, you must live in the US, but outside of the Acera group plan service areas. So our group plan service areas for Kaiser and United Healthcare are San Francisco Bay Area, Sacramento, Fresno, Southern California, and for Kaiser, they also have Santa Cruz. If you live in one of those group areas, group plan service areas, you cannot choose an individual plan. You got to choose one of the group plans. But otherwise, if you live outside those areas, you can choose an individual plan if you're not yet Medicare eligible. Now, if you are Medicare eligible, you just simply have to live inside the US and enroll in Medicare. You can live in Oakland or San Leandro or wherever you want in the US, and you can enroll in a plan through Via Benefits. Via Benefits is a private health insurance exchange. We contract with them, and they contract directly with, I think it's over 100 insurance carriers actually, offering thousands of plans. And what you do is if you want to enroll in an individual plan, you contact them. And if you can do it online or over the phone. If you talk to them on the phone, you talk to a non-commissioned benefit advisor, so they're not biased. What they do is they take your information, you tell them how much you want to spend, where you live, what level of coverage you want to have. You can even tell them what doctors you want to visit, what prescription drugs you need, and they will narrow down their thousands of plans to just a few that are right for you, and you can choose among those plans. And the monthly medical allowance pays for not only the premiums, but the deductibles and copays. Now, the monthly medical allowance is paid to you a little bit differently. It doesn't go into your pension check like it does if you enroll in a group plan because it's too complicated to do it that way. So if you enroll in a Via Benefits individual plan and you are eligible for the monthly medical allowance, what I'm showing you here is another crude illustration of how this works. Here's Acera. Here's your monthly medical allowance dollars that we can, that we will give to you if you're eligible. And what we will do is we will send those dollars over to Via Benefits, and they will deposit it into your health reimbursement account that they will administer for you, and that money will sit there. Then you are going to enroll in an insurance plan, and you're going to pay that insurance company your monthly premium directly. Once you have insurance, you're probably going to go to the doctor. And when you go to the doctor, you're going to pay a copay. So now you're out some money for your premium and your copay. So you submit a reimbursement claim back to Via Benefits, and they will pay you your monthly medical allowance dollars back to your bank account. And they set this all up to happen electronically. Most of it happens automatically, especially the recurring payments to the insurance company and recurring reimbursements for that. So you would just need to use their smartphone app to submit reimbursement claims for copays back to them. So it's not super complicated, and they'll help you through all of it. One more thing that I want to say about that is that if you're Medicare eligible and you choose an individual Via Benefits plan, those plans happen to be so inexpensive that the Board of Retirement has decided to have a smaller, slightly lesser monthly medical allowance amount for the Medicare enrollees in those individual plans through Via Benefits. And that's what this chart is showing you here. But they do keep track of how many members in that situation spend all of their monthly medical allowance dollars in the year, and it is a small fraction of the total. So for most people, the vast majority of people, this is totally adequate to pay all of their expenses. So that's medical coverage and the medical subsidy, the monthly medical allowance. Let me tell you about the dental plans. There's two, Delta Dental PPO and Delta Care USA. If you live anywhere outside of California, you would be choosing the Delta Dental PPO if you want dental coverage through us. There's two kind of sets of columns here, and this one says mandatory enrollment because if you retire with at least 10 years of ACERA service credit or a service-connected disability, you must enroll in one of these plans, but it doesn't cost you anything. The self-premium and the subsidy are equivalent. So for example, if you enroll in Delta Dental PPO, you would see 5124 come out of your check, and we send that to Delta for you. You'd see 5124 go back into your check in the additions column, and it costs you $0. You can enroll your Self Plus One or family members, and you just pay the difference between the subsidy and the larger premium. Now, if you do retire with less than 10 years of ACERA service credit, you can still enroll. You just have to pay your whole way to pay for the plan. And there's a different set of premiums. Vision plans, very similar. There's a standard plan and a premium plan. The company is called VSP. And if you have at least 10 years of ACERA service credit, you must enroll in at least the VSP standard plan. But again, it costs you $0 because the self-premium and the subsidy are the same. Now, you can buy up into the premium plan, which gives you, for example, frames every 12 months instead of every 24 months. And you have to pay the difference. The subsidy doesn't increase. You just have to pay the difference between the premium and the $4.63 subsidy. And again, if you have less than 10 years of service credit, you can still enroll. You just have to pay your whole way. Okay, number 4, the fourth non-guaranteed benefit is called the Medicare Part B reimbursement plan. So when you turn 65 and you enroll in Medicare Part A is going to be free for all of you, as long as you have paid into the Medicare system for at least 10 working years, or the equivalent of 10 working years. It doesn't have to be consecutive. So that'll be free. Medicare Part B comes with a cost. It's tiered by income, but you have to have a pretty high income to get up to the next tier. So the vast majority of people will pay $164.90 per month for Medicare Part B in 2023. Well, because when you want a medical coverage through ACERA and you're Medicare eligible, we mandate that you choose one of our Medicare plans. We also will subsidize it for you. So this is a subsidy for you. You will pay $164.90 to Medicare for Medicare Part B per month, and ACERA will put $164.90 into your pension check. So then it ends up costing you $0. All you need to do is to qualify, have at least 10 years of ACERA service credit when you retire, or the service-connected disability retirement. You just need to enroll in Medicare Part B and maintain your enrollment. And you have to submit the enrollment form for this benefit one time. And we'll just keep putting it in your check. We'll remind you to enroll in this at the time you transition into Medicare. And in fact, we have a Medicare transition webinar that we do 6 times a year, and you can enroll in that. You go under news and events on our website and go down to Medicare seminars, and you'll find that there are some options there for enrolling in the Medicare webinar. The fifth and final non-guaranteed benefit is the supplemental cost of living adjustment. This is actually a very powerful benefit. So remember, the cost of living adjustment, the regular COLA, that's guaranteed, that's vested, but the max we can pay to you in the COLA is limited to 3% for Tier 1 members and 2% to Tier 2 and 4 members. Because inflation in the United States tends to be a little over 3% on average, if you look at the history per year, that means that you usually end up losing momentum. You end up losing buying power to inflation over the years. If you lose at least 15% of your buying power to inflation, the supplemental cost of living adjustment kicks in and keeps you at 85% of your original buying power in retirement. So you can never go below 85% of your original buying power. It's a very, very powerful benefit. Okay, we're right on time here. Thanks for bearing with me while I kind of hit the gas pedal going through that stuff. I'll answer any questions you all have after I'm done. This is the last slide. This is just referencing some various life events that might happen to you. I don't have individual slides on this because they don't apply to everyone, but I just want you to know that these web pages are out there and there's more information out there. If you are planning on deferring your retirement, which again means that you stop working and don't immediately retire, you defer your retirement to a later date, go ahead and check out our page about deferring retirement. There's definitely information on there you want to know going into that. There's more information about death benefits before retirement at acera.org/death. I mentioned this earlier when there was a question. If you're going to get divorced or dissolve your state registered domestic partnership, or if you're just simply curious about what would happen if you did, we do have information out on our website. We have a whole page at acera.org/divorce, and it will help you understand how divorce affects your Acera benefits. Disability retirement. I just very briefly mentioned that concept earlier in the presentation. We do have a disability page out on our website. If you are going to, if you are thinking about applying for disability retirement, go ahead and check out that info. We do have a disability unit that can help you throughout the entire process. Working after retirement. I mentioned earlier that if you go work for anyone else besides one of our 6 participating employers, we don't care. And we're just going to pay you your retirement allowance every month for the rest of your life. However, if you come back to work after you retire from Acera, after you start drawing a pension benefit, and you come back to work for one of our 6 participating employers, like for example, you come back to work for your current employer, there are restrictions on that, and there are limitations on that, and there are rules around it. So you're definitely going to want to go check that out before you make any plans to do that. And the site is acera.org/working. Finally, should you relocate after retirement, go ahead and go to acera.org/address, fill out our address change form. It's in DocuSign. You can submit the whole thing online. It takes 2 minutes. This allows us to change your address in our system so we can continue sending you our annual report, and most importantly, your open enrollment packet in October and any official correspondence we need to send to you. We have a call center, a member services center, and their entire job is to answer your questions. You can email them if you go to our website at acera.org/contact. There's a contact form there. They're also open 9 a.m. to, I think, 4:30 p.m. every day. The hours are out on the website. And the phone number is 510-628-3000. Yeah, it's 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. on business days. All right, we did it with 2 minutes to spare. So again, thank you so much for learning about your pension benefits, and thank you for your attention and for spending this time with me. And on behalf of Acera's Board of Retirement and Acera staff, we wish you an amazing and beautiful retirement. So thank you.